This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
Specializing in metal parts, machining, and fabrication since 1960, Girding Enterprises has excelled in the machining process. A truly American company, Girding Enterprises has gone from one-man shop in a basement to a world-class machine shop with over 20 employees. We strive to uphold the highest level of quality while constantly improving our efficiency level in order to offer the most affordable prices to our customers. Visit us online at girdingent.com or give us a call at 636-274-9802.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome back to this live version of the MisFitNation, coming to you on About Face Radio and all our streaming social medias. And, of course, sponsored by Hero Media Group. Tonight, we have a good one. We have a retired U.S. Army Special Forces and now currently Chief of Business Operations for the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation in Arlington, Texas, where they are building a 3-pronged project that will have a museum, leadership institute, and a monument that will honor all the Medal of Honor recipients while inspiring future generations of Americans to understand leadership and love of country. So without further ado, let's bring Darrell Utt to the MisFitNation. Welcome, Darrell. How are you?
Thank you, Rich. I'd like to give a shout out to the MisFitNation and to you, of course, and a huge congratulations, 2022 Top 40 Over 40 podcast, man. It's super impressive. I'm a huge fan. I love what you guys are doing. Love what you guys are up to. Love the support that you have for our veterans. I was listening to some of the ads before we went live here, and man, it's just so impressive. And it's an honor for me to be here, and I can't wait to share little bits and pieces of my story. Hopefully, it'll help some folks out there.
Outstanding, Darrell. And we got to chat. I think it was about a month ago now. We linked up a little bit
We did a little Zoom session there, and we talked to each other, got to know each other a little better. And you shared a lot of stuff with me there, and I'd love for you to share some of your background with the Green Berets, of course, and what the trials and tribulations you went through with them, and how we got to where we are now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I would love to start there. I entered the Army in 1990. Came from humble beginnings in West Virginia. Entered the Army in 1990. Spent a couple of years, actually about 6 years, in the infantry, and then I transitioned over. Went through Special Forces assessment and selection at Fort Bragg, and was fortunate enough to get selected, and went through the qualification course, and spent about 10 years operational in 10th Special Forces Group. I got to see a lot of different countries, got to see a lot of action, about 10 combat deployments, several in the Balkans, four pretty big ones in Iraq. I was there 03, 04, 05. I was also there in 06 and 07. Little bit strange. Never had the opportunity to serve in Afghanistan. That didn't come. The Special Forces groups are regionally aligned, and our group wasn't thrust into Afghanistan until a little bit later. But yeah, man, I was operational for about 10 years, and after that, I did my staff time, and I had to kind of make up for all that cool guy time, and I did my instructor time, and did some staff time at Fort Bragg, and then I retired. But definitely got to see a lot, and got to serve with some remarkable people. So I'm very honored and proud of that service.
Definitely, and I'm sure the men that you were able to serve with and lead, and also train as you move forward in your career, are glad that they were able to run into you and glean some of your knowledge. And of course, you got some of theirs as well along the way. We were both in Iraq at the same time, 3 and 4. So that's another link we have with each other. So that's pretty cool as well. I was, of course, in Ramadi, the rest of Ramadi, a beautiful place there. It was amazing. But
Rich,
beyond that,
what unit were you with in 03, 04?
Big Red 1. I was with 1st Brigade, 1st Brigade, 1st Infantry Division. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So we were out of Fort Riley.
Yeah, so you got to see Ramadi in that area before it really spiraled into what it became known for later. Is that right?
We were there right when the Blackwater dudes got ambushed and hung off the bridge just to our east there in Fallujah, and from there it spiraled out from that point forward in April.
Yeah, I still remember that press conference. I can't remember I think it was a 1-star general. I can't remember his name, but they asked him a question about that incident, and he said, "We will pacify." Whether it was Ramadi or Fallujah, I don't remember exactly which one, but I think it was maybe Fallujah. But
it was Fallujah.
Okay, he said, "We will pacify Fallujah," and I thought
right.
That was a very interesting statement. But
yes.
And
what that did was cause all them to come to us in Ramadi to hide from them. So that's how we wound up in the fight before they did.
Yeah, I bet.
So that was a great learning curve for me, especially coming from a mechanized world, to become light over there and doing that. I know you got to meet a lot of great people while you were in 10th Special Force Group and going into Iraq, of course, 3 times. And, of course, the Balkans. The Balkans is something a lot of people don't even talk about, because it got overshadowed after 9/11, what was going on there, what happened there, 96 through 99. And so it kind of got overshadowed. But you can talk to any dude or dudette that was there and say, man, it sucked. It was horrible there.
Yeah, I remember actually, it's funny that you say that, because it's exactly right. And that was the only game in town before 9/11, happened. Mm-hmm. The Balkans, like if you were in the Balkans, like you were playing in the Super Bowl, that was the big dance.
Right.
And there was a lot of groups that wanted to get in. And, I think thinking back, we had one operational detachment Alpha. We had one ODA, one Special Forces team from 5th Group that was over there, and I believe they were working with the UAE that happened to be in Kosovo. So that was kind of like their excuse, like, hey, this is our partner force, and they're in Kosovo, so we need to be there with them. But that was all 10th Group, So for me as a young guy, just getting out of the Q course, and I was forward deployed. I was in 1st Battalion, 10th Group, and we were basically the 911 force for all of the things that was going on in the Balkans, because, you know, we were going to do the air war, then we weren't. We were going to do the air war. And every time that happened, we got moved from Stuttgart, Germany down to San Vito, Italy. And we were on standby because we were going to be doing, which we ended up doing during the air war, combat search and rescue, which was kind of interesting. So, you know, we were always just going back and forth. And then, so that was, you know, I got the 1st Battalion in 1998, late 1998. And then we started, you know, 1999, we were always gone and responding to something. Or, you know, I think remember President Clinton at that time did some kind of delegation, some kind of peace delegation in downtown Sarajevo.
Yep.
So we had a ginormous special operations presence because his motorcade went right down Sniper Alley. Not just his motorcade, but all of the different heads of states. I think there was like 40 different heads of states. So, you know, we were there for that. We provided counter sniper security for President Clinton and all the other world leaders. You know, being right there on Sniper Alley, it was kind of interesting. But, you know, constantly, you know, going down to San Vito, combat search and rescue. And then when the air war finally did kick off, we had two planes that got shot down. And it was unfortunate for us, but fortunate for our brothers who we were rotating with. Both of those shoot downs happened on Team B, you know, the other team. So they got to go in and get those pilots. You know, but it was interesting. It was, you know, it was the only thing going. So we thought it was a huge deal. And just like you said, man, as soon as 9/11 happened and then Afghanistan and Iraq kicked off, it was like, man, everybody forgot about Bosnia and Kosovo so fast. You could, you know, before you could blink your eye, man, all that stuff was forgotten.
Exactly. It was kind of treated like Korea was between World War II and Vietnam. Korea happened and Vietnam happened. What's the other war that happened? We don't know. And, you know, for you guys, it was Desert Storm, then Somalia, of course. So that was the last two big things. And then the Balkans kicked off. And then, of course, 9/11 and the 20 years since then, 20 plus years now of constantly going and adding people to your new careers, walls and stuff inside there for the museum.
Yeah, for sure, man. So when you were in Ramadi 03, 04, had you already been to Afghanistan? Like, what was your deployment trajectory like? Were you Iraq first and then you went to Afghanistan, or did you go back and forth? What did that look like for you?
So on 9/11, I was already in Kuwait when 9/11 occurred. So we went from, I guess it was called Operation Southern Watch at the time, to the global war on terrorism within minutes. So we went from having basically not even a basic combat load to, and having ice cream and all this great food, to having a full combat load and MREs for a while until they figured out what to do and how we can help those coming in and get them out to where they were going in Afghanistan. And that was basically our mission there. They rotated us back, and this is the funniest part. We were in the desert, of course. We were trained up to be in the desert. They sent us back, and they sent us to NTC to get ready to go to the desert, which is the weirdest thing I ever did in my military career, I think. And then from there, 2003, 4 in Iraq, and then 10, 11 in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and 12 in Kunar, Afghanistan.
Wow.
So I bounced. I went north after. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely appreciate your service, Rich. I know you saw probably some, like most people, you saw some very terrible things, and really appreciate your service.
No problem. Same to you, brother. And
yeah.
And I mean, you were able to transition pretty well after you retired from the military. Of course, you held one other career, and then now where we are now. So let's talk a little bit about how you got to the museum, and then I'll play a clip of the museum for the audience to listen and watch it as well.
Okay, well, don't laugh too hard, because my first post-military job, once I retired as a Special Forces Green Beret out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, my first post-military job, I was a director of security at the Museum of the Bible. Oh. And yeah, I mean, and it was under construction, you know, $550 million facility, 430,000 square feet. And it was just one of those things I lucked into. Actually, another Green Beret that used to work for me, was the global director of security, and he was focused on board members and travel outside of the country and things like that. Excuse me. But he needed a trusted number 2 that could be in DC and be there day to day for the Museum of the Bible once it opened. So that was my first introduction into the museum vertical. And I learned quickly and as fast as I could because I didn't know much about either topic, to be quite honest with you. I didn't know that much, about the Bible as far as like when you compare it to like PhDs and scholars and things like that. Like I didn't have that type of institutional knowledge. But there's some very, very sharp people that I work with for sure, no doubt. But didn't know that much about museums, but I did know about security, and I did know about keeping people safe and protecting assets. So that was a good transition for me. I got to cut my teeth, if you will. And then I eventually transitioned into operations, which was perfect for me, doing the day-to-day ops. It was similar to running an ODA, and it's leadership 101 and taking care of people and making sure the job gets done. I mean, it's basic stuff, right? So then I transitioned over. I was a consultant for a while, still work with several different museums in the DC area and other parts of the country. So still maintain that part. And then that's what eventually led me down to Dallas, Texas, or the Texas area, North Texas. And in my role as a consultant is how I met Chris Cassidy, who is the president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation. Chris is a unique guy. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's an MIT grad. He's a former chief NASA astronaut. We kind of have a joke, he's like the classic underachiever, because he's just done so much, and he can definitely humble you with his background and his career. But in my capacity as a consultant, I met Chris, and I was very open and honest with him because I felt like we had a bond, Navy SEAL, Green Beret, and I knew where he was coming from. He knew where I was coming from. And I just said, hey man, I'm not trying to pitch you, or I'm not trying to get work out of you or anything, but I'm fascinated with the project. I'm passionate about it. I have a lot of strong feelings for what you guys are doing. And I would just like to share some lessons learned that I went through when we were building the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. And maybe some of my lessons learned can help you guys. And that was basically it, man. That was my message. And Chris and I continued to talk, and then eventually one thing led to another. And he said, hey man, we would love to have you part of the team. If you're interested, what do you think? And I was like, man, I'm there. Count me in. So that's kind of how everything, that's the background. That's how things started. And that's why I'm here. And I would also like to say this because I think it's important. That first meeting that I had with Chris Cassidy, I shared with him 2 of my Medal of Honor recipient heroes, my superheroes, guys that inspired me, guys that impacted my career. And that's Master Sergeant, 2 Delta Force snipers, Master Sergeant Gary Gordon and Sergeant First Class Randy Shugart. Received the Medal of Honor for their actions in Mogadishu, Somalia, which ultimately cost them their life. But that first meeting I shared with Chris, I was like, man, I was a 21-year-old kid with just a couple years experience in the Army. And when Mogadishu happened, that had a huge impact on me, and it definitely inspired me. And I'm very thankful that I was exposed to heroic, courageous men, Master Sergeant Gary Gordon, Sergeant First Class Randy Shugart, because they had such a huge impact on me. And I feel like in a very small, tiny way, I can say thank you every day that I work at the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation. It's a way for me to say thank you to Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart, because I could never tell them that face to face, because obviously they were killed in action. But it's just a way for me to honor their courage and their heroism and their sacrifice. And it means a great deal to me. And people ask me like, hey, why do you work there? Well, that's my why right there, man. That's it.
Definitely. And And when that incident occurred, that was my first week on active duty. So I got to Fort Stewart, and I had no idea what DRF was or what alert was. And we got alerted when this occurred, and to be the ready force to go forward. So I had no idea what that meant. And I was getting in trouble because I was drinking and being a dumb specialist at the time and doing things. And I learned quickly what it meant to be on DRF and be able to fly at a moment's notice and get all your shots and get to the airfield and fly out and support our brothers and sisters that are downrange. And so that also is linked to me there. And those two gentlemen, they epitomize what it means to give all for others and selfless service. And they did everything of the Army values in one instance. They did it all, and they laid down their lives so others may live. Years later, in 1999, I met Michael Durant, who they saved. And that was an awe moment for me, but he was as humble as can be. And it was amazing to talk to him and knowing the history of what happened and him just being a normal human. And I was expecting a superhuman guy who made it through this, but he was just a humble man and talked to us like we were just regular guys. It was pretty cool chance meeting.
Yeah, man, I would love to be able to meet Mike Durant and be able to talk to him, if he would be willing to talk about any of those things. But yeah, man, I mean, and what he did and his crew on the 160th side, I mean, man, just special operators, special people, and have a great deal of respect. And I think they laid the groundwork for the success that several units, several individuals would have later on during GWOT, without a doubt, man. I think they laid a lot of the groundwork, like the medical things. I mean, man, they definitely laid the groundwork, and they probably saved countless lives.
They definitely did. And I think we'll pause here to give an introduction to the museum, and then we'll come back and we'll chat about everything that's going on there. And so I know this is your baby now, so we'll chat more about this in about 2 minutes and 33 seconds.
All right, brother.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museums will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
Strong video right there, and it's going to be huge. Like everything is in Texas is huge. You got to make it bigger than life in Texas. So,
man, you say that, man, and I got a big grin on my face right now because I'm flashing back to last year. You know, I started working at the foundation in February of 2022, and we had our groundbreaking on March 25th, which is Medal of Honor Day, National Medal of Honor Day. So we had groundbreaking March 25th of 2022. And I've been there for, a month. And I mean, groundbreaking, dude, is literally a shovel in the dirt.
Right.
And as you said, everything's bigger in Texas. I mean, we had former President Bush, Bush 43 and his wife were at the groundbreaking. I think we had, 15 or 16 Medal of Honor recipients, which is really unheard of, man, because we only have 65 living Medal of Honor recipients. So when you can get more than like a handful together in one place, it's like a miracle, because, they're so busy and some of them are elderly. So it's difficult for them to travel. But I mean, man, the amount of people that we had, it was so inspiring. And former President Bush 43, his words were special. Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley was there. Major General retired Pat Brady, Medal of Honor recipient, Vietnam, saved over 5,000 people. I mean, just ridiculous to hear some of the things that these men did. So his, anytime Major General Brady speaks, it's special. So, man, you're right. Like it was amazing. I don't even know what grand opening is going to be like. One change from the video, we've been kind of working through our dates and we've had some delays and things like that. But that date for opening has been moved from late 2024 to early 2025. So it looks like we'll probably do a soft opening January, February of 2025. And then we'll have our grand opening in March of 2025. So man, we're really excited about that. And who knows how big that grand opening is going to be, but hopefully we get maybe the current president and some other past presidents, and then some more recipients. It would just be a very, very special opening.
It'd be amazing. And you'll probably have the University of Texas marching band, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, everything there dancing and playing their music for you. You might have some rock stars because it's Texas, so country stars come out there as well. So I'm sure it'll be a big thing, and it'd be hard to get tickets. So if you remember, just send me an invite. I'll be there. Okay,
brother. You bet, man. If I can do it, I will.
Definitely. And you talked about the two guys who inspired you, Shugart and Gordon. I think in my early career, I think I had two first sergeants that had the same guy's picture on their wall, and it was Roy Benavides. And that dude was a beast, Master Sergeant Benavides. Shot up and kept fighting, and never cared for anyone but his men and those around him. So that's what I was inspired by, along with Shugart and Gordon, of course, because that happened as soon as I came into the military. So there it is.
Let me show you this book here, Legends. It's about Roy Benavides, and I don't know if I can pronounce the author's name correctly, but I'm a big fan of him, Eric Bleim. It's Blehm. How do you pronounce it? Do you know?
I think it's Bleim. That's what I think you said.
Okay. But yeah, this book is about Roy Benavides, and you are correct, my brother. Roy Benavides, call sign Tango Mike. Man, he was a beast, and I love his story. I love everything about Roy Benavides, and it is just so. I mean, it's mind-boggling what he was able to do. My son's currently serving in the Army, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, but a couple of days ago, he sent me. It wasn't the autopsy, pictures, but it was like you would see like on a health, some kind of health card or a piece of paper. Yeah, like a physical, and it had like the front side of a male and then the back side, and in the text message it had all of the different wounds from that engagement. I think it was May of 1968 in Cambodia, which is where Roy ultimately received the Medal of Honor for his actions. I mean, heroic actions, unbelievable almost. But the wounds that this man had, I mean, the amount of times he was shot, the shrapnel wounds from grenades, RPGs, hand-to-hand fighting. He was stabbed. I mean, this guy was shot, blown up, stabbed, hit in the face with the buttstock of a AK-47. I mean, this dude experienced everything, and he continued to fight. And man, what a story. And his background of where he grew up. I mean, he grew up poor. He was an orphan. Was discriminated against, unfortunately. And the love that this man had for his country is just so impressive and off the charts. He's a hero of mine. He's probably one of the recipients that I know more about, because admittedly, I'm an operations guy. I'm a day-to-day execution guy. I'm not like, we have Dr. Ed Lingle, who's a PhD and, working on the exhibit team and working with the content. So we have really smart folks that do all those type of things. But Roy is one of those guys I was able to dig in just because, he's a former Green Beret. And, what's so impressive about Roy, obviously his action and what he did. I mean, and even if you know his story before his Medal of Honor action, I mean, he was wounded so bad in Vietnam that they said he would never walk again. So he had to teach himself to walk before he even went through Special Forces assessment and selection and the qualification course to earn his Green Beret. That's just story after story. But, another thing that's so amazing and impressive about Roy for me are the things that he did after he received the Medal of Honor. And all of those different speaking engagements that he did with young kids and explaining courage and sacrifice and commitment and integrity and citizenship and patriotism, those 6 values inherent in the Medal of Honor and the Medal of Honor recipients. I mean, he just passed on all of those stories, and he's just a remarkable man. And we are fortunate at the foundation that Roy, he's been past several years now, but his family's still involved, and they're still, they come up to the construction site, they do tours. His grandson was able to go through the preview center, and it's so awesome that they're still involved in the project because, they're Texas folks. So it's an honor to be able to meet them and hang out with them for sure.
Definitely. I know there was a group of people that really wanted the home of Special Forces to be named after him instead of changing to Fort Liberty, whatever it is now. It should have been named into Fort Benavides at Fort Bragg there. But so that would have been the cherry on the top of the cake there.
Yeah, I didn't get that, man. Didn't get that for sure. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are, that should have those honors and things like that. But I mean, him being from the Texas area, I was thinking maybe Fort Hood could be a possibility. Definitely Fort Bragg, because the Fort Liberty thing, I'm lost on that. And I was just at this past week, I was just at Fort Bragg. And although there were a few things that I saw that said Fort Liberty, but there were still signs up that said Fort Bragg. And I wasn't expecting that, man. I thought it was all going to be down. Actually, one of like the main entrances still had that stereotypical brown Fort Bragg, home of the airborne, special ops, all that stuff that you typically see like with a news reporter having that in the background. Like I still saw one of those entrances, and I was kind of blown away. And it's interesting, man. For the first time, I got to go to the Airborne and Special Operations Museum in Fayetteville. I feel like I feel a little silly because I retired out of Fort Bragg. I was there probably longer than any other duty location that I was ever stationed at. I was probably there 8 years or more. And I don't think I never got over there, but it was cool, man. I got to go over there and spend some time, my wife and I, and checked out the museum, and they had a special display honoring the ODA, the horse soldiers from 5th Group. So that was cool, man. I got to see that. I think Jack Britt High School helped them do a little temporary exhibit. So that was really neat that story is still being told, which I'd like to give you another compliment, Rich, for what you're doing here. You have a platform, a very, very successful platform, and you're allowing folks to come on the show and talk, veteran stories and veteran inspiration, veteran leadership, all these different types of things. And I think it's critically important because, this generation, they're listening to these podcasts, and there's other veterans that might be struggling that are listening to these podcasts. So I think, I have a lot of respect for what you're doing and what your show's doing, and every little bit of success that you have, man. I'm so proud of you, and you deserve it. And I hope that you're able to continue doing this because the message needs to get out, and, these stories need to be heard so they're not forgotten. And I remember growing up, I'm 51 now, so I'm a little aged here, but, I grew up and I read books on the Vietnam War and LERPs and Rangers and things like that. Well, I think it's a little bit different for this generation. I think this generation, they're listening, they're on their phones and they're on their laptops, and they're listening to podcasts and they're hearing these stories. And maybe, man, wouldn't it be nice, or wouldn't it be, icing on the cake, I guess, if they hear a couple old guys like you and me, and we're talking about stories, Iraq, Afghanistan, and maybe it inspires them like, hey, maybe I should go serve, or maybe I could do that. Yes. Maybe there's opportunity for me. So I just want to kind of give you a huge shout out for that, Rich. I think that's really special what you're doing, man. And my hat's off to you.
I appreciate that, Darrell. And you said something good there, to get them to serve. And I know a lot of them might not be able to serve in the military, and because of whatever factors they might have in their lives, but they can still serve in their communities. Our communities need a lot of building as well now. And we've all seen this over the last, 4 years now, I guess, how our country's kind of splintered across the middle there. And the way to fix that is in the community. If these young men and women growing up, coming through high school, if they can't serve the military, or they don't want to serve, maybe they can serve their community and maybe volunteer and help other kids out to see that there is a better path in life than doing bad things. And if we can help one and to reach one, teach one, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you.
So you said earlier that it was Sugar or Gordon are the two that pop into your mind the most. What are the living ones, or living Medal of Honor recipients have you got to meet that really impressed you the most?
Yeah, so I've had a chance to meet several Medal of Honor recipients, and one thing that I constantly tell the staff, they're probably so tired of me saying it, but we are so fortunate to work on the staff at the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation that we get to associate with our nation's greatest heroes, and it's like I have to pinch myself sometimes. And I tell the staff all the time, they're probably tired of me saying it, but I'll say it again. I spent 26 and a half years in the United States Army. Most of that, was in Special Forces. I was only ever around one living Medal of Honor recipient, and that was MACV-SOG legend Bob Howard. I mean, absolute, another beast. And I believe he might have been put in for a couple of medals of honor. But this man, Bob Howard, was a legend, and he was at one of our functions, and yes, I got to see him, but everyone was like, stay away from him, don't talk to him, don't ask him for pictures, don't ask him for autographs, just let that man do his 5 or 10 minute speech, and then he's gonna get on out of there. But I just tell that story. It's like, man, I've had the opportunity to sit down a couple times with Britt Slavinsky, SEAL Team 6, Medal of Honor recipient from Afghanistan, and just have lunch, as a staff, like, hey, Britt's going to come and he's going to spend some time with us and talk to the staff, because, Britt, like all the other recipients, they're very appreciative of the hard work and everything that we do. Because, to be frank, man, it's not easy to build a museum, and There's so much that goes into it, the fundraising, and there's just a lot that goes into it. The construction, especially now with how things have been kind of going with the economy and escalation, all that type of stuff, supply chain. It's kind of a tough time, but the recipients are so appreciative. And Brett, Brett just is like, hey man, I just want to come in and have lunch with you guys, break bread. And, the staff's asking him questions and he'll pass out his coin. It's always a treat for me, Rich, to spend any time with Major General retired Pat Brady, because he's just such a legend. And he's probably got the wittiest sense of humor. I was listening to one of the podcasts with General Brady and our former CEO, Joe Daniels. And Joe Daniels had asked General Brady, like, hey, tell me about like one of your heroes. And he started talking about one of his crew chiefs, like a 21-year-old kid from, Vietnam that flew with General Brady. And General Brady was like, man, this guy was shot, was knocked out, landed in a minefield, ran through the minefield, rescued people. Like he did all of these things. And then eventually, years and years later, General Brady said he was watching his San Antonio Spurs get ready to win the NBA championship. And this guy's family had called and said, hey, I think his name was Pappy. That was his nickname. But he's like, hey, Pappy's on his deathbed and he's getting ready to pass. And he wants you to take care of all the funeral arrangements, burial, and all that stuff. And I'll jump ahead and give you the Reader's Digest version, but General Brady, he makes a joke. And I forgot the part of Kentucky that Pappy had lived in and where he eventually got buried. But General Brady had made a comment. It's like, man, they don't even speak English in this part of Kentucky. It was so hard to make all these arrangements. But he's able to provide that type of humor. And he often, kind of makes jokes and at himself. And he's just so witty. Will Swenson, another Afghanistan Army Medal of Honor recipient, is another guy that blows me away because, the dude is just so sharp. He's on our board. Jack Jacobs, another member of our board, another guy that's, man, extremely, extremely bright and smart. But Flo Groberg, I know that there's, a Flo, or you've been in that unit, and I hope that you have an opportunity to talk a little bit about Flo, because I think it would be interesting. But I've been around him a couple of times. He's probably one of the most powerful speakers that we have. He's got a very compelling story, coming here from France and joining the Army and serving his country and things like that. And, I haven't really had a chance to sit down and talk with Flo. But I have, I've met him. I've been around him a couple of times. I've read his book, 8 Seconds of Courage. I would highly recommend to the MisFitNation out there. If you want to read a book, you should check out Flo's book. But Rich, I would love to hear maybe some background or some stories from Flo, and tell us your experiences and how your paths have crossed with a real live Medal of Honor recipient, man.
Yeah, so I met Flo in 2012. He was already in country, and we fell under his brigade headquarters. So he was the PSD for the brigade commander and Sergeant Major Griffin and all their team, basically. So when we came, we got to Cop Fortress, and we were an SFAT team advising our Afghan unit there. And they came to visit us pretty much weekly. And every time they came, me and him I was the team sergeant, so I'd walk away. I didn't want to sit in the meetings. So I'd sit and talk with him and learn more about him. And everyone that was in the unit knew him and knew great things about him from his previous tour. And he would talk about his time running track and field. And he was a great runner, an amazing runner. And he probably could have stayed in that path instead of going to the military, instead of making that sacrifice for himself. But the thing that stood out to me most was after I got wounded June 19th, 2012, him and Sergeant Major Griffin were the first two people to come visit me.
How did you, if you don't mind me asking, Rich, if you're comfortable with it, but How did you get wounded there in June?
We were on the COP maybe a week or so. Finally gotten our operations going, and we went on a mission up into the David Gall Valley, basically the same valley where Mike Murphy earned his Medal of Honor as well. So same valley, and we were told don't stay out there more than 90 minutes. And our partner force, because if 90 minutes is when they're able to zero in on you and they'll come get you, and they'll start attacking you. So exactly 90 minutes, the first RPG came down, hit the wall behind us. So we started to back out our huge vehicles to get them out of there. We rode back to Cop Fortress, and all they did was go across the mountain to line up above us. And we were getting out of our vehicles, and mortars started falling. So there was a volley of about 6 to 8. They hit two civilian workers that were on the Cop, and a couple soldiers got knocked out. We called in medevac, and the Apaches came in and gave us cover for a while. Once that last Apache flew out, it started flying away. They launched again. We were giving it all clear. My medic, it was his first time in combat. He said, "Sergeant, I want to talk to you," because he helped those two civilians. He saved their lives. I said, "All right, man, good job." I put my hand on his shoulder, said, "Great job, brother." And a mortar hit right behind me. Went through my left leg, the back of my left leg out the front. I didn't feel it because, adrenaline hits. Once you hear the boom, the adrenaline goes up. I didn't feel it. He looked down, and he was from Latin America there, so he was kind of very tan, and he turned kind of pale at this point. He's like, "Sergeant, you're bleeding." I said, "Go help somebody else." So I took out my tourniquet, went in, put that on, and went inside. And my lieutenants that were in there, they caught me down, they cleaned it up, and then they fixed up my bandage. And I sat there, and then they finally made the SF guy that was there, medic, came up to me later and say, "Hey, Sergeant, you know what gangrene is?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you want it?" I said, "No." "Then get on the medevac bird." I said, well, damn. All right. So I got on the medevac bird. I flew to JBAD, had surgery. First time the Army did surgery on me. It was my goal in life, never to have surgery from the Army. And I lost that goal right there. And I came out of my loopiness, and it was those two were the first two to visit me. And Sergeant Major Griffin told me I had the $1 million wound. I said, "No, Sergeant Major, I didn't get shot in the ass. I got hit in the knee." He said, "No, but you get free license plate for life." I said, "There's a bonus." And Flo just said, "I'm glad you're still up, brother, and I'll see you back on the COP," because they knew I wasn't going to get evac'd. They knew that was my final stop. I was going back out, and that does lift my spirits right there, knowing that those two came in to help lift me back up after I was probably at my lowest moment there.
Man, that says a lot. And I think there might be some listeners, especially if you have some non-military listeners, that they might not fully understand or comprehend the kind of the dark. There could be some dark military humor amongst the brother and sisterhood, that maybe some people don't get, but you and I definitely get, man, for sure.
Yes, I'll never forget what the SF medic said to me, or what Sergeant Major said to me. And then, of course, I think it was like 4 days before the incident, or 3 days before the incident, they were on our COP, and it was late at night. So me and him were outside by the LZ, and we were talking to each other, and then a couple of the Afghan NCOs that were out there. And we just had a great conversation, me, Flo, and them, and talking about how we lead and how they should lead and stuff like that, and trying to push them to greatness. And then that was the last time I got to speak to them in country before the incident on August 8th.
Wow. So can you tell a little bit about that incident? From what I understand, or what I recall from the book, I believe Sergeant Major Griffin was killed. Is that right?
Yes, he was. He was one of the 4 killed that day. It was him, 2 majors, and a U.S. aid worker that were killed. But what happens was they would land on the base. I can't remember the COP. I can't remember the COP right now that they land at. And they would always walk across this footbridge, basically the same path every time. So when they came across, he noticed the first thing was suspicious, Flo. And he ran towards him. He jumped on him, of course, and detonated, and messed up. His leg got destroyed, basically, in that incident. At the same time, a second one was coming from the other side and detonated as well, and took out basically the rest of the formation, killing the Sergeant Major, the 2 majors, and the U.S. aid worker. And my actual brigade commander here from Fort Campbell was also wounded, and basically his leg was shattered too at the same incident, because he was part of that same patrol walking in there. So we lost a lot of great people on that day, and Flo and his team, they did everything they were supposed to do that day. But sometimes you're either the bug or the windshield. That day they will happen to be the windshield.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough, but definitely heroic. I mean, to think about, suicide bomber and what you're going to do. I mean, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. And what Flo did, I mean, just, man, heroic, just totally heroic. And if he wouldn't have been there and if he wouldn't have done that, I'm sure that our killed in action would have probably been a lot higher, man.
It would have been horrific. It probably been the biggest loss because there was so many higher ranking people in that formation. It would have been a huge loss that day, and his actions saved more than just his principal, but everyone else that was in that formation that lived.
Yeah. Yeah, something that General Brady talks about all the time. It's like, yeah, you can be this or that or this great athlete or, police officer, whatever it is, but you really got to be, for it all to matter, at the end of the day, for it all to matter, you got to be a great human as well.
Exactly.
And I think that's definitely Flo Groberg for sure.
Yeah, he was 100% lovable dude, and all his soldiers that were in his, I think it was his platoon 2 years ago or 2 years prior to that in Iraq, I believe it was, they all spoke highly of him as well. They all spoke highly of him. Everyone that was in the unit we were with Charlie Company, and then of course their FET team that was with us. They all thought he was like the bee's knees, the best dude in the world. So that's a testament to him and a testament to his family and upbringing. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, another Medal of Honor recipient that I'm really, really impressed with. I mean, I'm impressed with all of them, but Kyle Carpenter, Marine Corps Medal of Honor recipient. Man, that guy, he is such a humble dude. And he's got that South Carolina twang,
Yes.
Such a great dude. I mean, gosh, I just have a ton of respect for him. And I wish I could remember the exact name of his book. I did read his book, and no, I listened to it on audio. That's probably why I don't remember the title, but the things that man went through, I mean, man, he almost didn't make it, man. I mean, he came really close. So, yeah, man, we definitely have some heroes. We have some great stories, and it's going to be exciting to be able to share their stories with the rest of the country because, if I'm a guy and I'm in the Army for 26 and a half years and I've only ever been around one, just kind of like barely,
right.
Then there's so many people out there across the country that have never even been exposed to a recipient. So,
Exactly.
So we hope to change that in March of 2025. And I would like to ask you, Rich, hopefully I don't put you on the spot here, but if you were in Arlington, Texas, and a museum, the National Medal of Honor Museum is open, would this be something that would attract like maybe you and your family and your friends that you would want to take them to? Could you maybe talk that piece or what expectations would you have, or maybe what would you share? Would you want to pass some stories? Maybe you'd want to talk about your interactions with Flo and what that meant to you, or Roy Benavidez. I mean, just kind of tell me, like, what would that be something that you would like, man, I have to go there. If I'm going to be in Arlington, Texas, or around that area, I have to go to this museum, and this is why.
Oh, definitely. That's an easy question for me. As I told you in our pre-call, my wife's a history teacher. And so this is right up her alley. And every museum is her alley. So like you were talking about earlier with the Fort Bragg sign, the brown sign, if you're driving down the road, you see a brown sign that says this marker here, our car is going from the left lane off the exit to go to that area just to check it out, even if it's something obscure like the biggest ball of twine or whatever. But we're there. But for this here, the Medal of Honor, this is something that I think every American should find their way to Arlington somehow. I mean, I know right now travel is expensive, but if you're in that area, there's no reason not to go there. There's plenty of ways to get there. If you wind up in the DFW area, that's the best place to go. And what I would expect to see in there is a great I don't think it doesn't have to be perfect, but an awesome display of each individual as they were recorded, as their history was recorded by those who were there with them if they lost their life in battle, and then the story about them either prior to and then of course during the battle, and of course pictures, maybe something that would highlight who they were prior to that, and then what they were that day. I think those are the things I love to see in museums. That is the real thing, is to see how that person acted when it was at their most, I guess, their utmost time in life. Because like if you look at Clint Rumishaw, Ty Carter, when they're in Afghanistan, the battle there at the COP there, combat outpost, those two didn't know what that day when they woke up. They knew they were in a fight, and all they did was what they knew how to do. They went in there and they took care of business. They tried to save lives. Rumishaw gathered up the red platoon and did what he had to do. Carter was running around like a crazy man with his head on fire. He did what he had to do. None of them do this for the medal. They do it for their fellow brother, their sister that's next to him. And that's the story, I think, like you said earlier, which should inspire those who have not thought of serving, but now maybe they will because they see that's what they'll get to serve with.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Red Platoon. That is probably by far, man, one of my favorite top military books is Red Platoon, Clint Rumishaw, and the actions there. I mean, just the way that book was written, just a powerful book. And man, it's hard for me to read, some of the military books that are out there, because it's just, I guess I'm a tough critic, but Red Platoon's probably one of the favorite books. But I wanted to kind of touch on something that you said there with like some of these stories and the inspiration. And I think that's what we're definitely after is the stories. And if you talk to the recipients and you ask them like what they really want out of this museum, they want the educational piece. They definitely want people to learn and hear about the values that I mentioned earlier: courage, sacrifice, commitment, integrity, citizenship, patriotism. I think there's a lot of people across the country that are probably saying that, our youth in the schools and even some of the older kids in college aren't really getting that type of education, or they're not getting those values and those character traits. And if people can come to the museum and maybe pick up some of those, I mean, because these are ordinary people that did extraordinary things, probably on the worst day of their life. So if you're there and you're a firefighter, or you're there and you're a nurse or a teacher, or, you're there as a husband or a father, a mother, hopefully that you can pull and extract from some of these stories of these normal people that did these extraordinary things. And you can kind of pull bits and pieces of how they did it. And I think that's very powerful. And one thing too, like on the technology piece, it's gonna be a high-tech museum. I don't know if you've ever been to like a Holocaust museum, Rich, where they have like the Holocaust survivors that are virtual or holograms. We are going to have virtual Medal of Honor recipients that are holograms. So if you show up, Rich, with your family, friends, whatever it might be, and you want to have a conversation with Major General Pat Brady, he will be one of the virtual recipients, by the way. If you want to have a conversation with him and ask him what it was like serving in Vietnam, or how many people he rescued, was he married, what was his favorite food? I mean, you can ask him all of those things like you and I are having a conversation right now. So that's going to be fascinating. And, another thing about the exhibit deck, it's not going to be chronological. It's not going to start from the Civil War and then work all the way up and eventually conclude at GWAT with Iraq and Afghanistan. It's going to be a biography museum. It's going to be about the story. So exactly what you talked about, Rich, where you want to hear, like, it's great to hear the story and the action and what they actually did. But I think people really want to dig a little deeper and find out what kind of person this was before. Like, you're going to learn that this wasn't superhero. Like, this person didn't have a cape, I've listened to David Bellavia, Medal of Honor recipient from Iraq. I've listened to his story and some of the things, his trials and tribulations. And he talked about an incident where There was someone that robbed their house, and in the heat of the moment, he really couldn't act. He was a little bit scared, and he really doubted himself over that whole incident, because he could have been the hero for his mom and dad and rescued the family. But, there was like a point there where he just couldn't do it. But man, you fast forward several years later to Iraq, and he answered the call. But I think it's going to be fascinating, like you said, though, Rich, for people to be able to hear these stories of like, man, what was this person like before they entered the service and they did this heroic thing? They're going to find out that they were a normal person. Or like, hey, let's find out what this person did afterwards. Like, what have recipients really done for this country? And I think a lot of people, they don't really understand. Like, admittedly, I've flown my whole adult life, man. My whole adult life. I've flown in and out of Chicago O'Hare so many times. I did not know that airport was named after a Medal of Honor recipient. I feel like an idiot, but it is.
Now you know.
Yeah. And I mean, there's like Teddy Roosevelt, Medal of Honor recipient. I mean, all the things that he did. I mean, there's just so many different things. And I think it is going to be very educational. It's going to be very inspiring, and I'm excited for it, man. I'm really excited for it. I think, this is bipartisan. It transcends politics, and this is a museum about us as Americans and the fabric of our country. And I think it's super important. And, we're just really, really excited to be able to share it with the rest of the country.
I can't wait to hopefully get down there and see the construction, then of course see the opening and see how this comes together. I think it's going to be amazing. I think everyone has a chance should get down there and see it. And of course, there's plenty of other things to see in Arlington, a lot of historical things in Arlington and the greater Dallas area. You can clump in especially if you're a history person, history buff. You don't have to be a Cowboys fan, because I am not. So you can go down there as a Giants fan, wear your Giants hat, and go down there and hang out and see all this history and everything that's in the making there. This is amazing, Darrell. I've had a great time chatting with you and learning more about this. How does someone get involved and maybe be able to donate to the museum to help you guys get over the hump and maybe keep it operating and maybe just find out more about it?
Yeah, man, we definitely would be very happy to get some more donations. We're still working hard on the fundraising. We have a fundraising team that is top notch. They're just out of this world. Still looking for donations, still looking for friends. You can go to mohmuseum.org and learn more about us. You can get in there and see how to donate and help us out. That would be great. You can learn more about us. Please follow the National Medal of Honor Museum on all the different social medias: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm just now getting all of my social medias up. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you can. I'm on Twitter now. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I believe I'm on YouTube. And I'm doing some podcasts to try to, that was one of the things, Rich, that I learned from the Museum of the Bible. No matter how much money you were spending to build a museum, which back then we were spending $550 million, building a Bible museum in the nation's capital, you would think everybody and their brother would know. But that was one of the things I learned, man, and I'm trying not to repeat the same mistake. Always do your best to get the word out, man. I mean, if you're doing a podcast, a small podcast, medium, a big one, small audience, big audience, if you can just reach a couple of people and they tell their friends about it, that has a huge impact, because you can't just be complacent and rest. You just can't rest and be like, oh, people will find out about us. I mean, you always got to be out there getting the message out. But you can follow me on social. I post a lot about the museum, post a lot of pictures, post some videos. I'll be posting some stuff early this week. And we would just love to have people involved and be interested. And you can also go to the website and volunteer. I mean, we need volunteers. We have a lot of different events. So we couldn't be happier to welcome you to our team. And man, all the support out there, we are just deeply appreciative.
Outstanding. Darrell, any last shout outs to anyone or any advice you'd want to give some youngster coming up that wants to join the military?
Man, I have three very simple rules for the youngsters out there if you want to be successful. And here they are, and they're simple. Don't laugh. Work hard, be humble, don't quit. And that served me well, man, from a small town West Virginia kid. Work hard, be humble, don't quit. And I would like to say to maybe some of our veterans or first responders that might be hurting out there, I will say this. We talk a lot about courage at the Medal of Honor Museum, and a lot of people kind of put it in one category. But I will say this for our folks out there that might be hurting. It takes a lot of courage to ask for help. If you're hurting, or if you have a problem, alcohol, pills, whatever it might be, depression, marriage, whatever, man, it takes a lot of courage to raise your hand and say, hey, man, I'm hurting. I need some help. We have a suicide problem that's, man, it's just tearing our veterans up and others, first responders as well. So, man, it takes courage to ask for some help. There's people out there that could help you. We just need to know about it, reach out, and, we'd love to help you.
Outstanding. Darrell, again, thanks for sharing your history with us, your journey, and what you're doing now at the National Medal of Honor Museum. Like I said earlier, I can't wait to go down there and visit, see maybe the before and then at the after opening. So I get two peeks at it. That'd be great.
You got an open invite, Rich. Open invite, brother.
Thanks, brother. And stay in touch.
Take care.
All right, brother.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. It's themisfitnation.com to catch up on all of our episodes and also to get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are